The tray slipped from her trembling hands, porcelain shattering across the marble floor like the fragile pieces of her life. And in that exact moment, every eye in the grand, sunlit penthouse turned toward her. Sanaa froze, her breath caught somewhere between panic and regret. She wasn't supposed to be here, not in this polished world of glass walls and quiet wealth. Not wearing her sister's worn-out maid uniform, not pretending she belonged in a life that had never once made space for someone like her. If you believe that kindness and second chances can change lives, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Heartfelt Stories. Your support helps these stories reach hearts that need them most. The morning had begun like any other. Dusty sunlight spilling into their small, cramped home, the sound of distant traffic humming like a tired lullaby. Sanaa had woken to find her older sister, Mehak, burning with fever, her skin pale and her voice barely above a whisper. Missing a shift meant losing wages they couldn't afford to lose, especially with rent overdue and medicine already too expensive. Without overthinking, Sanaa had made a decision that would change everything. She would take Mehak's place for just one day. She had memorized the address scribbled on a piece of paper, her heart pounding harder with every step toward the towering building that seemed to scrape the sky. It was the kind of place she had only seen from a distance, where windows gleamed and guards stood at attention. She had expected to feel invisible there, just another shadow passing through, but she hadn't expected to feel so completely out of place. Inside, everything was silent in a way that made her uncomfortable. Not the peaceful kind of silence, but the kind that made every small movement echo loudly. She had tried her best to follow the instructions Mehak had given her, to keep her head down and finish the work quickly, but her hands weren't used to handling delicate crystal or polished surfaces that reflected her every anxious movement. And now, standing in the aftermath of the broken tray, she felt exposed. The man who stepped forward didn't look angry at first. He looked tired, deeply, quietly exhausted, like someone carrying a weight no one else could see. His name, she would soon learn, was Raheel Arman, the CEO of a major company, a name whispered with respect and distance. But in that moment, he wasn't the powerful figure people spoke about. He was just a man staring at the mess on the floor, then at her, with eyes that held more pain than judgment. Sanaa expected harsh words, maybe even immediate dismissal. Instead, there was a pause, a long, heavy silence that seemed to stretch endlessly between them. She lowered her gaze, her voice shaking as she tried to explain that she wasn't the usual maid, that her sister was sick, that she didn't mean to break anything. The words tumbled out in a rush, tangled with fear and embarrassment. Raheel listened. That was the first thing that surprised her. He didn't interrupt. He didn't shout. He simply listened, his expression softening in a way she hadn't expected. It was then that she noticed a small figure standing quietly behind him. A little girl, no older than 6 or 7, clutching a worn-out stuffed toy. Her eyes were distant, almost lost, as if she were somewhere else entirely. There was a sadness in her that mirrored the man beside her. The rest of the morning unfolded in a strange, unexpected rhythm. Sanaa cleaned carefully, more aware of her surroundings now. Her earlier fears slowly replaced by a quiet determination not to make another mistake. But she couldn't ignore the atmosphere in the house. It wasn't cold. It was heavy, like grief had settled into every corner and refused to leave. She saw in the way the little girl moved, slow and withdrawn. She saw it in the untouched breakfast on the table. She saw in Raheel's distracted gaze, always drifting somewhere far away. By midday, the sunlight streaming through the large windows painted everything in soft gold, but it did nothing to warm the emptiness in the room. Sanaa found herself drawn toward the child, whose name she later learned was Era. The girl hadn't spoken a single word since morning. She sat quietly by the window, staring outside as if waiting for something or someone that wasn't coming back. There was something about that silence that tugged at Sanaa's heart. It reminded her of the days after their parents had passed, when even speaking felt like too much effort, when grief had stolen not just joy but voice itself. Without thinking too much, Sanaa sat a little distance away from Era. She didn't force conversation. She didn't try to fill the silence. She simply existed there, gently humming an old lullaby their mother used to sing. The melody was soft, almost fragile, but it carried something warm within it, a quiet comfort, a reminder of gentler days. For the first time that day, Era's eyes shifted. It was a small change, almost unnoticeable to anyone else, but Sanaa saw it. The girl's gaze moved from the window to her, curiosity flickering faintly through the sadness. Sanaa continued humming, her voice steady despite the emotions rising within her. Across the room, Raheel stood still. He hadn't expected this. For weeks, maybe months, he had watched his daughter retreat deeper into silence after losing her mother. Doctors had offered advice, therapists had tried their methods, but nothing had worked. And now, a stranger, someone who wasn't even supposed to be here, had reached a part of Era that no one else could. Something shifted in him then, something fragile and unfamiliar. Hope. The rest of the day passed differently. Era didn't suddenly become cheerful, and the heaviness in the house didn't disappear, but there was a subtle change. She stayed closer to Sanaa, occasionally glancing at her, as if trying to understand this new presence that felt safe. For Sanaa, the day became more than just a favor for her sister. It became something deeply personal. She wasn't just cleaning rooms anymore. She was witnessing a family quietly falling apart, and somehow, without meaning to, becoming a small part of holding it together. By late afternoon, as the golden light began to soften, Raheel approached her again. There was a different look in his eyes now, not just exhaustion, but gratitude, mixed with something uncertain. Sanaa braced herself, unsure what he might say. What she didn't expect was the offer. He asked her to come back the next day. At first, she thought she had misunderstood. She explained again that she wasn't the usual maid, that her sister would recover soon. But Raheel shook his head slightly, his voice calm but firm. He didn't need a replacement for Mehak. He needed her. The request felt overwhelming. Sanaa's life had always been about survival, about doing what was necessary and nothing more. This was different. This was stepping into something unknown, something that carried responsibility far beyond cleaning floors or washing dishes. But when she looked at Era, who, for the first time, gave her the faintest hint of a smile, something inside her settled. She agreed. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, the atmosphere in the penthouse began to change. It wasn't sudden or dramatic. It was in the small things, the way Era started speaking again, one word at a time, the way laughter, though rare at first, began to return, the way Raheel's constant tension eased, replaced by moments of quiet relief. Sanaa never tried to replace what had been lost. She knew better than that. Instead, she became a bridge, a gentle presence that helped them find their way back to each other. But life, as it often does, brought its own complications. The difference between their worlds couldn't be ignored forever. Whispers began, assumptions were made, and boundaries blurred in ways that made everything more fragile. Sanaa found herself questioning her place, wondering if she was overstepping, if she was building something that would eventually collapse. And yet, every time she considered leaving, something held her back. Maybe it was Era's growing attachment, the way the girl's eyes lit up when she entered the room. Maybe it was the unspoken understanding she shared with Raheel, a connection built not on words but on shared struggles and silent healing. Or maybe it was a realization that sometimes the most unexpected paths lead to the most meaningful destinations. As the story reached its quiet turning point, Sanaa stood once again by the large window, the city stretching endlessly before her. The same sunlight that had once felt cold now felt warm, almost welcoming. She had come here by accident, driven by desperation and necessity. But she stayed because she had found something she hadn't known she was searching for, a sense of belonging. If this story has touched your heart even a little, don't forget to like, comment, and share it with someone who believes in second chances. Your support keeps these stories alive. And before we reach the end, tell us in the comments, do you believe that one small act of kindness can truly change someone's life? In the end, it wasn't about wealth or status, nor about the roles they had once played. It was about healing, about connection, about the quiet power of showing up for someone when they need it most. Because sometimes, the person who steps into your life by mistake becomes the very person you needed all along.